Hey, what's going on? Zach D Productions here, and I'm here for a list video for you guys. So for this list, this is one that I've actually been wanting to do for a while now. So for this video, I'll be going over unpopular movie opinions that I have. Now, if you don't agree with my opinions here on all these movies and these actors, or genres or whatever, then so be it. That's totally fine. You're allowed to disagree with me and, listen to what I have to say, of course. We're all cool here, so we're all adults here. We can all agree to disagree on things, at least I would hope. So this list is also in no particular order either, so let's go ahead and begin. So the first one I think I want to go over here is that I think Top Gun Maverick is actually better than the original Top Gun from the 80s. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the first Top Gun, but I think that the second one is way better, to be honest. I know that a lot of people do prefer the first, and I think maybe that has to do with nostalgia, but here's the thing with me. I never grew up with Top Gun, or a lot of Tom Cruise's films, as hard as that is to believe for some. I just never got into Top Gun when I was younger. I didn't really get into it till around when Top Gun Maverick came out. So maybe that has a lot to do with it. You could say that, but I just think that Top Gun Maverick has more action, for one, and yeah, I just dig everything about it, really. And Top Gun Maverick is still probably my favorite film of last year, 2022. So this, you could say, is an unpopular opinion because, from what I can tell, a lot of people do say that the first one is better, but I don't really agree with that, to be honest. But again, I do like the first one, but just not as much as the sequel, that's all. So next, we got the fact that I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is actually a good movie. Now, I know that a lot of people say that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is the worst Indiana Jones movie, even after The Dial of Destiny. I haven't seen The Dial of Destiny yet. I probably won't check it out till it comes out on digital or something. I don't plan on seeing it in theaters because I heard it sucked, actually. And from what I can tell, I kind of have less hopes for it. I've started to have less hope for it as days went by, as the movie was starting to release. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that they should have ended the franchise with Crystal Skull, to be honest. I don't know why they just couldn't have left it at that, because no one was asking for another Indiana Jones movie, let's be honest here. Like, in the early 2010s, for instance, no one was sitting there saying, you know what would be great if we got another Indiana Jones movie? I don't think many people were saying that, so I do think that Crystal Skull should have been the finale of Indiana Jones. And I think it would have been a fitting way to close off the franchise. So, yeah. But I think it's a good movie, actually. I know that some people don't like the part where Indy is crawling into a refrigerator in Nuketown, and, some people think that that's dumb and everything, but I think it's quite hilarious, to be honest. And, the alien stuff, I think, is something else that might rub people the wrong way about this movie, but I wouldn't really say any of the Indiana Jones movies are, realistic. I mean, this movie is not as gritty or anything like the previous films, but I still like it for what it is. I think it's still a solid Indiana Jones movie. I mean, one of my only complaints with it is really the CG, but besides that, I think it's solid for what it is. Definitely not as bad as a lot of people say, in my opinion. So next, we got Spider-Man 3 is actually a decent movie. Not that Spider-Man 3 is a great movie. I wouldn't even call it a good movie, but it's decent, I would say. I don't think that this movie is as bad as a lot of people say it is as well. Does it have its issues? Absolutely. It could do without all those subplots. It could do without having 3 villains. I mean, you really didn't need 3 villains in this movie. There's too much happening in the movie, and of course the whole dancing scene in the movie. I mean, I know that part has been memed numerous times, and yeah, so there's definitely things about this movie that have definitely rubbed people the wrong way. But I do think that Spider-Man 3 is a decent movie. I mean, the action scenes, it has some decent action scenes, especially the parts when Spider-Man is fighting Sandman. I think those aspects of the movie are pretty fun to watch. And of course, some of the CG and some of the green screen stuff, you know, you could tell really looks bad, especially in the first half of the movie when Peter is fighting Harry. Like, you can tell that the CG and the green screen stuff in that movie really stood out in a really bad way. So obviously there's not so good things about the movie. I do think it is the weakest among the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. I mean, the first two are easily better. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But the third film, it's still okay. It's still okay. There's obviously things to dislike about it, but I think that there's also things to like about it at the same time. So another unpopular movie opinion I have is that I think the Ip Man spin-offs are better than Ip Man 4. Now, Ip Man 4 has always been my least favorite among all the Donnie Yen Ip Man films. I love Donnie Yen, and I love the first three Ip Man films, yes, including the third one, because I know that some people don't even like the third film for some reason, because they say it's boring. I don't get all that, but the fourth Ip Man film has always been my least favorite among Donnie Yen's saga of Ip Man. You know, I've seen this movie a couple times. The first time I watched it, I do remember liking it, but the second time I watched it, I have to say that it's not as great as I remember. Like, again, it's always been my least favorite, but I even like it less now. And I think this has to do with for a few reasons. Number one, the whole racist crap that's in the movie, you know. Now, look, I get what they're trying to do here. I get where they're coming from here with that, you know, with the basically racist stuff that's in the movie because of the setting. This took place in the 60s, you know, back when the whole racist subject was, you could say, still at its rise, still was, you know, more genuine then. So I understand where they're coming from with that. So because of that, I can kind of forgive it a little bit there. So yeah, it's just a little something that I've noticed. And I think Rambo Ralph said it best, that it does come off as a little cartoonish. And I can kind of see that because they made it seem like every single person in America is this evil person, which obviously that's not true. So again, it comes off as a little unrealistic. Like, again, I do realize it is still the 60s when this movie was set, but with every single person, come on now. So that's one of my complaints with it, is just how, again, like Rambo Ralph said it, how cartoonish it is with that and how it was portrayed in that way. And the fight scenes as well is something else I do have a problem with. I mean, Donnie Yen can really choreograph some great fight scenes, some of the greatest fight scenes ever in cinema, but the fight scenes in Ip Man 4 are not really anything special. They're not really anything worth writing home about. I mean, what is there anything special about Ip Man 4's fight scenes compared to the other ones? You know, I would rather watch the fight scenes in the first three films. I mean, you have a scene in Ip Man 4 where Ip Man is defending this girl from these bullies, and he grabs the one bully by the nose, which I will admit is funny, it's comical, but, you know, I get that, you know, the Ip Man series has its comedic moments to it, you know, it has its comedy to it, but it's not done in the way that it should be, if that makes sense. So that's another thing that I kind of have a problem with here, you know. It just doesn't really work. I mean, in my opinion, you really only needed the first three Ip Man films. I know that Donnie Yen is also doing a fifth Ip Man film, which I hope with that film they kind of do go back to basics with that one. But yeah, Ip Man 4 though, I mean, it's decent. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's terrible. You know, it's not a terrible movie. I still think that there are things to like about this movie. Especially Scott Adkins, who actually plays the villain in this movie. He plays this sort of prejudiced drill sergeant, and he's actually quite funny in the movie. And, you know, I liked his performance. It's always great to see Scott Adkins, but, you know, he's really one of the things that really does keep this movie from making it terrible, you could say. Of course, him and Donnie Yen's performance is always great. But again, my complaints, I mean, it weighs the movie down, I think. So, yeah, Ip Man 4, not as good as the spinoff. Like I said, you know, even Master Z, the one with Max Zhang. Now, Max Zhang, I think, is kind of an underrated martial arts actor, and it's sad that, you know, he doesn't really get his just due. And it's also pretty sad that the movie that he's best known for is an Ip Man spinoff. But, of course, that's not saying much because it's a really strong spinoff. I mean, I would say it's one of the better spinoffs to any movie, really. Especially considering the cast that you have in the movie. I believe Michelle Yeoh is also in the movie as well, in Master Z. So, it's a pretty solid spin-off movie, I'd say. And if you have seen the Ip Man films, but you've passed up on this spin-off, I'd say give this one a watch. It's worth a watch, I'd say. So, yeah. I even like that movie more than Ip Man 4, to be honest. But again, Ip Man 4, it has its redeeming factors, but, you know, again, there's a lot of things about it that I'm not really too big of a fan of, you know. The fight scenes, and on top of all of it, it's not really that comfortable to watch, at least in my opinion. Alright, so next we got another unpopular movie opinion I have, of course, is that Mortal Kombat 2021 is actually a good movie. Now, I know that a lot of people do not like Mortal Kombat 2021. Now, it is interesting because before I couldn't really tell which of the movies I liked more, this movie or the one from 1995. And I know that that's, you know, hilarious to some people. Like, really? You can't decide which movie you like more? Well, nowadays I can. I would say that Mortal Kombat 1995 is a better movie than Mortal Kombat 2021. But with saying that, I still think Mortal Kombat 2021 is a solid movie. I mean, there are definitely things about the movie that I think could have been trimmed down, you know, but, you know, there's obviously flaws with the movie, but it's actually quite good, and I'm actually looking forward to the sequel. So, yeah, Mortal Kombat 2021, it's not bad. It's a pretty brutal movie as well. So, again, I'm looking forward to the sequel, so, yeah, not a bad movie, I don't think. So next, I know that this one will really trigger some. I think that Star Wars is overrated. So, yeah, I never got into Star Wars. Even when I was younger, I never got into Star Wars. I probably will never get into it, to be honest. If I do get into it, it'll probably be the one with Donnie Yen, because you guys know that I am a Donnie Yen fan, and I know that he was in a Star Wars film. So, if I ever do, you know, invest in anything Star Wars, it would probably be that, because I'm a big fan of Donnie Yen and the performances that he delivers and everything. So, but all in all, you know, I never got into Star Wars. I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with the characters. I mean, who's not familiar with Darth Vader and Yoda and, you know, iconic characters like those? Like, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, obviously you're familiar with those characters. So yeah, Star Wars I never really got into, to be honest. I don't think I will get into it. And I know that there's like this whole thing with, oh, which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars? Personally, I'm not into either, but if I had to choose, I would choose Star Trek, to be honest. So, yeah, I know that that might be unpopular too, who knows, but all in all, it just never got into Star Wars. And the next unpopular movie opinion I have kind of aligns with this as well, and that is I think Harry Potter is overrated. I also never got into Harry Potter. I mean, I remember in elementary school, you know, I had classmates who were really big into Harry Potter. You know, they really loved Harry Potter, you know, but I never got into it. You know, I just never got into that. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. You know, I never got into those type of films. Those films don't really interest me that much. Those sort of fantasy, medieval, sci-fi, I don't know what you want to call them, these wizard magic type films, never really got into those. I mean, if you like them, of course, to each his own, but they've just never been for me. You know, I know people who do like the Harry Potter franchise, and that's fine, but those films have just never been for me. You know, never really could get into them. They never really sparked my interest or anything, but that's just me personally. Okay, so the next few things on this list actually have to do with actors that I don't like, that a lot of people seem to like. And one of them is about Tom Hanks. And that is that I actually don't like Tom Hanks. He's not one of my favorite actors. In fact, he would make my list of actors that I dislike very much. And I think that we all know why there's some people that don't like Tom Hanks, because, you know, of the creepy stuff, of course, that surround Tom Hanks, and that's obviously one of the reasons why I don't like him. I mean, really, if I'm gonna watch anything Tom Hanks, it's gonna be Toy Story. And no, that's another thing too. They're making a Toy Story 5 for whatever reason, because they just don't know when to end Toy Story. In my opinion, they should have ended with the third film. You know, you really didn't need the fourth film, which in my opinion is still the weakest among all the Toy Story films. But Tom Hanks himself, man, I'm not a fan of him as an actor or as a person, you know. I'm just not really a big fan of him. And it's funny because I've seen a meme recently like, oh, this is a meeting with all the actors that nobody hates, and it's Tom Hanks and Keanu Reeves. You're really going to put Tom Hanks in the same room with Keanu Reeves as actors that nobody hates? Well, I don't like Tom Hanks, but I do love Keanu Reeves, though. You know, why couldn't you have someone else instead of Tom Hanks in there? Why couldn't you have Donnie Yen or Jackie Chan, you know? Or Liam Neeson or someone, you know? Someone else to replace Tom Hanks. Because there are some people who don't like him, myself included. So the next actor that I'm also not a fan of is Leonardo Dicaprio. Now, is Leonardo DiCaprio even still relevant? I can't even tell you the last time I've seen him in a movie. I don't know what's going on with him these days. You know, same thing with Jet Li. Like, you don't see Jet Li in anything these days. And I love Jet Li, but it's sad that, you know, he's been struggling with, you know, his own thing, and, you know, the fact that he's not in movies much these days. And, you know, but what's the deal with Leonardo DiCaprio? Like, I know that he was in Inception, and of course he's probably best known for being in Titanic, which is an overrated movie. So yeah, that could be an unpopular opinion right there. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of his movies are overrated, including Inception. And, you know, I don't really have anything against Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't have anything against him personally. I just don't think he's all that strong of an actor, you know? I don't think he's that good, to be honest. I never really got into him as an actor. You know, I just think that there's better actors out there to follow, in my opinion. But if you do like him, of course, to each his own, more power to you. But yeah, never really got into Leonardo DiCaprio. So another unpopular movie opinion that I have actually involves Shrek. Now, Shrek is probably one of my favorite animated things ever growing up. I know that a lot of you love Shrek as well. It's probably my favorite DreamWorks anything. You know, anything owned by DreamWorks, you know, Shrek is my favorite among all of those. But I'm actually of the opinion that Shrek 4 is better than Shrek 3. Now, I say this because I think a lot of people do prefer the third one for some reason. I don't know why. I've always kind of liked the fourth one. It's not perfect, but I think it's a decent finale. And, you know, is it really the finale, though? I mean, because there's rumors about there being a fifth Shrek movie, which I wouldn't be surprised by that either. And I liked the fourth one a little bit because it went back to the days of the original film, you know, so there was a little bit of nostalgia there. You know, that's one of the things that I appreciated. I mean, they actually did something a little bit different with the story. The only thing that, you know, the third film had to offer was introduce King Arthur, or whatever his name was, that prince or whatever. You know, it's just, you know, it wasn't all that intriguing to me. But of course, the first two Shrek films are definitely the best. Honestly, my favorite of the Shrek franchise does go back and forth between the first and the second film. Really tough to decide between those two films. But all I know is that those two are easily the best, and I think anyone could pretty much agree on that. Okay, so next, another unpopular movie opinion I have is that I think Batman Begins is better than The Dark Knight. Oh, I know, that's gonna be, that's gonna rub people the wrong way for sure. I do like The Dark Knight. Of course, rest in peace to Heath Ledger, who played the Joker, and I think he's really the main reason why a lot of people say that The Dark Knight is the best of the Dark Knight trilogy. Like, oh, Heath Ledger, the best Joker ever. Really? Are we just gonna not act like Jack Nicholson ever existed? Because in my opinion, he was the best Joker. So there is that. And I do like Joaquin as Joker as well. Honestly, I liked all the guys who played Joker. I think that they all did a fine job. And Heath Ledger, of course, may he rest in peace. But I do think that Jack Nicholson was the best Joker. And I like Batman Begins because, you know, it was basically an origin story. You know, I like the ninja stuff in it. And of course, Liam Neeson was the bad guy. And I am a Liam Neeson fan as well. I do like a lot of his work. You know, especially at the end where Christian Bale's Batman goes to him. He's like, you know, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. You know, that's just iconic at this point. Batman Begins, you could say, is underrated, especially when we're talking about the trilogy in its entirety. You know, so I don't know. I've just always liked Batman Begins, and it's always been one of my favorites of the live-action Batman films. So yeah. Christian Bale, I thought, was a good Batman as well. I mean, I think Michael Keaton will always be the best, but Christian Bale, I thought he did a fine job as Batman, so couldn't really complain. So, yeah, but I do think that overall, Batman Begins is a little bit better than The Dark Knight, but I wouldn't say by much, though. I mean, they're both great movies, of course. So another unpopular movie opinion I have is that I think Rambo: Last Blood is actually a good movie. That's right, because I know that a lot of Rambo fans say that, oh, Last Blood, that's the worst of the Rambo franchise. Really? I think it's better than Rambo 4, to be honest. Rambo 4 is easily my least favorite of all the Rambo films, but not bad, though. I love the first 3 films. They're all classics, especially the first 2. Rambo First Blood is a classic, and probably my favorite of the Rambo franchise. Maybe even my favorite Stallone movie as well. But Last Blood, I think, is also pretty good. I mean, if they decided to end it at this and make no more Rambo movies, I'd be okay with that. I think that Last Blood is a fitting finale. I mean, it's dark, and it's emotional as well, and it's pretty violent and brutal as well. I mean, basically, you have Rambo in this movie going out and taking out human traffickers, so there is that. So yeah, it gets pretty brutal in the movie. So yeah, but I like the movie though. I mean, it's not overly complicated or anything, and I don't think it needed to be either. So yeah, it's a very solid Rambo movie, and again, I think it's a fitting finale if this really is the finale of the Rambo franchise. So yeah, I actually like Last Blood. I have that on Blu-ray, and it's a really good movie. So lastly, for my unpopular movie opinions, this one might seem a little hypocritical because I'm wearing a Marvel hat, as you can see, but it's the fact that I think superhero films are overrated. This is probably going to be the one that'll trigger people the most. I do think that in general, superhero films are overrated. Now, this is not to say that I don't like superhero films, of course, because you guys know that I do like some superhero films. Obviously, I love the Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi, especially the first 2. Like I said, I think the third one is at least decent. Again, going back to The Dark Knight, I do like the Dark Knight trilogy. I like the Michael Keaton Batman films, and I even liked the Batman with Robert Pattinson as well. You know, I like Guardians of the Galaxy. I liked the Ant-Man films, the Avengers. So, obviously, I do like some superhero films. But, do I like superhero films more than just regular action films? Like Rambo, like John Wick? No. I would very much rather watch action movies than superhero movies. And that's really the only reason why I would say that in general superhero films are overrated, because there's no reason to hype up these films as much as people do. I mean, especially nowadays. I think nowadays we're just way past the peak of originality in superhero films. I mean, there's really only so much you can do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there has been good comic book movies over the years. Again, going back to the Batman, which I thought was really good. And I thought Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was a really good movie. And I do plan on picking that up on Blu-ray at some point. So, obviously, yes, there are great comic book movies, great superhero films to come out. But I don't think that it's the greatest genre of movies ever, like a lot of these people say. That's just my opinion personally. Again, I would very much rather watch standard action movies, you know, despite what people want to say about them. But that's just me personally. But again, I don't have an issue with superhero films. You know, obviously, I do like a lot of them. But I think that basically just wraps this up. I just gave you a list of some unpopular movie opinions that I have personally. Let me know what you think. What are some unpopular movie opinions that you have? Do you agree with some of my takes here? Feel free to let me know. So with that said, thank you for watching. Have a good one.